Hello again, everybody. I'm Paul the Nitro Skywalkers, and welcome to this edition of Nitro Memories. Today, we're going to look back at November 1986, and this past month, that month featured the Night of the Skywalkers, the Scaffold Match between the Road Warriors and the Midnight Express at Starrcade 86. Now, Jim Crockett Promotions was coming off a major tragedy as Magnum TA's car accident ended the career of Magnum TA. Some say that Magnum was going to win the NWA World Heavyweight title at Starrcade 86. I would not be too surprised by that. But the focus became the feud between the Road Warriors and the Midnight Express. And when they announced on television, I think it was World Championship Wrestling, that they were going to have a scaffold match. I never even saw a scaffold match before in my life. It's like, how in the heck are they going to fight on a scaffold in an arena? Well, I got a glimpse of it probably 2 weeks before on television. I think it was once again on World Championship Wrestling, the scaffold up top of the ring. I mean, I'm looking at 20 feet above the ring. It's like somebody is going to get either seriously hurt or dead if they fall off on the wrong side on the concrete floor. Thank God that did not happen. But it was an awesome sight. It's like, ooh, I would not want to go up there for any reason against the Road Warriors on a scaffold. No, not happening. And Jim Cornette petrified half to death because of height. Really, Jim? I remember you climbing up that scaffold trying to get away from the one of the Road Warriors, and then you just hanging there and you fell, broke your leg, hurt your knee. I was like, oh God, you deserve that one, Jim. It was an awesome sight at Starrcade 86. The Night of the Skywalkers was just tremendous. And of course, the other big thing was Nikita Koloff becoming a good guy. Never saw that one coming either. I was like, wow, Nikita, now a good guy. I was like, okay, Nikita's going to be the World Heavyweight Champion. Not to be. Both men were disqualified at Starrcade. And then, and that was just great. The first blood match. First person to make their opponent bleed will lose the match, with Dusty Rhodes and Tully Blanchard for the World Television title. I was like, oh, good God, who will be the first to bleed on that match? I was like, oh, that's going to be a good one. A roll of coins later and Vaseline on the forehead to cover the cut because Tully was cut first. Referee didn't see it. Vaseline on there to cover that cut. Dusty Rhodes knocked out. He got split open. Above the eye, ref saw that. You were the first to bleed. You lost. I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh, that's a crying shame on that. But overall, it was a good night at Starrcade for that one. Just unreal. The first blood match. Wow. With the Night of the Skywalkers. Well, while that was going on, the World Wrestling Federation was focused on the feud between Rowdy Roddy Piper and the adorable Adrian Adonis. Of course, Adonis hurt Piper's leg on the flower shop thanks to the betrayal of Roddy's former bodyguard, the Ace, Cowboy Bob Orton, with the pink cowboy hat. That looked ridiculous on Bob Orton Jr. on that. And Adrian Adonis. The Flower Shop is the #1 show. Well, Piper destroyed that one real quick. Unbelievable, the Flower Shop. Meanwhile, the feud between Hulk Hogan and the quote-unquote the Benedict Arnold of the World Wrestling Federation, the late, great Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, escalated inside of a 15-foot-high steel cage in surrounding areas with the Hulkster emerging on top of that. I think this is going to begin the wind-down feud between Hogan and Orndorff, but no one knew what was coming around the corner in one Andre the Giant challenging for the World's Heavyweight title. Speaking of Andre, he just got back from suspension by Jack Tunney for failing to go to certain live events. Jack Tunney, the president of the World Wrestling Federation, otherwise known as the figurehead of the World Wrestling Federation, suspending Andre for not showing up at house shows. I was like, really? Really? He was in Japan at that particular time, as well as I think he was finishing up the Princess Bride movie. I'm not sure. as to the actual date on that finishing of the movie. But nonetheless, Andre was returning back from suspension, and this was probably his last good run in the World Wrestling Federation, now as probably the bad guy. We didn't know about that till January of '87 on Piper's Pit. Meanwhile, the British Bulldogs remained World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions at the time. Also, around this time, the territories were starting to wind down. The UWF was doing pretty good, but they only would last one more year in 1987 before being bought out by Jim Crockett Promotions. The AWA was still on ESPN, but not for another year. They'll only be on for a year and a half. They had Kurt Hennig and Nick Bockwinkel go to a draw on on Thanksgiving Day. The Midnight Rockers were red hot in the AWA. World Class Championship Wrestling, you might as well forget about it. They were dying a slow death. Florida Championship Wrestling was about to be bought out by Jim Crockett Promotions as well. So November of '86 definitely was the night of the Skywalkers, something I'll never forget with that scaffold match. Well, that will do it for this edition of Nitro Memories. Next time, we'll wrap up the year 1986 by looking at December 1986, including the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Achievement Awards for 1986. Ric Flair and Nikita Koloff continue to heat up in the NWA for the World's Heavyweight title, and a new team coming to the NWA to challenge the Rock and Roll Express for the World Tag Team titles. Until next time, I'm Paul the Nitro Skyver saying so long, everybody, for Nitro Memories.